Millions in Africa are expected to have a worsening nutritional situation in a matter of a few months, expectedly 6 weeks after the war in Ukraine began. According to a March 2022 analysis of the Cadre Harmonice, 38.3 million people will experience a food and nutrition crisis between June and August, an increase of 40.2% from 27.3 million during the same period in 2021. The Cadre Harmonice is a unifying tool on the screen there that helps to produce analysis of current and projected food supplies and shortages. Olumide Adesina, financial analyst with Quantum Economics, joins us to discuss further. Olumide, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. You actually wrote an article in Nairametrics about the food supplies and nutrition crisis facing Africans. How bad is the situation, looking at that chart we had?
Yeah, thanks for having me. The picture is not looking so good. We need to understand, just like you earlier highlighted, that the 6-week invasion, Russian invasion on Ukraine is really having a systemic effect on food prices. And we're seeing that across bases, stable foods in Africa have risen by more than 20% in the last 3 months. And it seems like it's not hampering down. Also, the US dollar upsurge has really distorted the market in such a way that it has really made much difficult for farmers to get in a lot of fertilizers. Fertilizers are becoming expensive, despite the fact that Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, has opened fertilizer plants some weeks back, but that hasn't really shown on the numbers. So what we're really saying is that it's really going way in on the African continent, and just like right there, I like it that we're seeing millions that might suffer from food malnutrition. And just to report also highlighted that about 19.5 million Nigerians might go with hunger in the next couple of weeks. So it's really a very damping and very sad picture.
You also pointed out, I think you were looking at corn prices. I think corn flirting with a 10-year high, somewhere around $8 or so. What are the triggers? How long can it maintain those highs?
Yeah, that was not shocking because understanding the systemic importance Ukraine and Russia play in grain prices, particularly corn for Ukraine. Despite the fact that the United States happens to be the leading producer of corn, we are seeing the fact that the demand is really outweighing the supply. So it means that it suggests that still on the technical analysis, the $8 per bushel looks like an overbought position. But the fundamentals are showing that systemically that it might go as high as $8.5, and that's really going to trigger so much market volatility. Having said that, I think we need to also consider the fact that the season, we're entering winter season, so planting would also distort. We're entering the season where the weather is really uncertain, and it's really going to distort the market, relatively. I'm talking of the West Coast in the United States. So pretty much damping, no much excitement in the market right now in terms of corn prices, and that's why we are seeing corn prices moving so high. Then the Chinese are also ordering, the Chinese have been ordering grains, including rice, in the past couple of weeks. We've seen that across blue-tech terminals that the Chinese are really ordering price, so not to cut on our way, because right now the world is still short of food.
So how do we protect Africans from these price spikes in staple foods?
Very direct questions. I think we need to look at much more direct and short-term realistic goals, such as we need to start thinking more like Africans. We need more like political solution where Pan-African, we need to start creating much more usable policies. Like, for example, the West African bloc needs to have a cohesive policy in shutting down this malnutrition crisis. Also, transportation plays a major role. And statistics have suggested that 20 to 40% of food is lost by transportation. So we need to start putting storage facilities close to the farmers, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. And despite the fact that the Nigerian Central Bank governor has and its team has really supported the Nigerian economy, much needs to be done, because just last year we imported about 2 trillion naira worth of food. So what is really telling us that is that the impact on subsistence farming has not yet much very good. We also need to make the agricultural sector very very attractive. We've seen a lot of young Nigerians going to the tech, crypto, and banking industry, leaving a sizable amount untouched to agriculture. Despite the fact that agriculture plays a major role in Nigerian economy, you need to take into consideration that 22%, 30% of Nigeria GDP comes from agriculture. So, having said all those things, I think it's now ought for policymakers to take these things much more collectively and subsidize fertilizers because despite the fact that we haven't done the richest man bringing out fertilizer inputs in Lagos, statistics have suggested that those prices to subsidize farming inputs just to increase productivity.
Thanks for that. Since we're talking food, what do you make of the latest inflation figures from Ghana?
It wasn't surprising, understanding the systemic shock that food is playing in many African economies. An average Ghanaian spends more than 40% of his budget on food, so we were not surprised to see that. Despite, but what really is shocking in those numbers is that the Ghanaian central bank have been hawkish in recent weeks. You understand that the last time they increased the interest rate by over 250 basis points. They've tried to cut government spending. They've tried to attract investors by bringing out interesting and attractive yields in their euro bonds and this thing. But having said all those things, they're still seeing that those shocks. So I think what it means is that we're still going to see much austerity policies, and that's why we saw the digital and tax payment coming in, and just in form of tightening liquidity, raising funds for government spending. But I think in the long run, I think stagflation will really be a matter of concern for the Ghanaian economy. But with those numbers really rising year to year, I think short-term solutions might not exist.
Tough times there. We're still talking food and inflation. Commodities, oil. What do you make of Vital's decision they're saying, cease trading in Russian crude by the end of this year?
Yeah, that was a systemic move. Understanding Vital's systemic importance in the energy market. This is the world's largest oil independent trader. And just last year, they made about $4 billion in revenue on the volatility of oil prices. I think it's much more going to, although they're going to implement that by the end of the year, it's already weighing that we might see much more distortion and disruption in the energy market. And despite the fact that Nigeria seems to be having some margins in oil output, it has not really played out. So I think from a technical perspective, I think it's really going to mean that Vital won't be carrying the Russian oil, and the importance of the Russian oil in the world's economy until the Ukraine crisis comes to the bare minimum.
All right, might as well talk currency since we're talking commodities. How are the global currencies trading against the dollar?
Yeah, I think if you look at emerging currencies, especially the ones in Africa, we've seen that the dollar has been the king, and definitely you understand the narrative why investors general over the world are really liquidating their risky assets and moving to the safe haven currency. You can see that the US dollar right now is opening up against major currencies, particularly even the Japanese yen is trading at decade low. So that just tells you that the concern about COVID-19 in China with systemic hawkish moves by the US Fed to tame inflation might really give the US dollar a bullish run for the long run. And also the hawkish moves by different central banks. We've seen the Canadians, we've seen the South Korean, and lately we've seen others in Latin America suggest the fact that the dollar is on the bull run.
And how long do you expect that bull run to continue? You think it's going to be maintained as far as this year is concerned?
I think the US dollar. I think I'm hawkish towards the US dollar definitely because from the narrative of US Fed speakers and looking at those that initially were dovish, changing their tone, and the fact that the US Fed is trying to reduce the balance sheet by $95 billion every month. That suggests that in just 10 months, about $1 trillion will be liquidated out of the markets. Definitely will really give US dollars some upside, despite we are seeing inflationary concern about other systems. I think investors are really keen on the US economy, the US military, and the fundamentals behind the US currency. So I think investors are really bullish on that.
All right, Olumide Adesina, analyst with Quantum Economics. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your insights.